Today I'm going to talk about why the future of go-to-market isn't better tools. It's about imbuing the whole stack with intelligence. So there's three big things that having a living go-to-market intelligence layer does. One, you can actually encode your best expertise into the system, and because you've now encoded that expertise, you can use that to do programmatic research on each lead and across your entire TAM that would have taken hundreds of hours, just automatically in an instant. And this allows you to have a day by day, up to date picture of your TAM based off of your actual judgment and your current beliefs about your ICP, what pain points they care about, deals closed, everything, real data, all the way through because you can do it for each lead. Now you can do it then for each group, and then you can do it for your whole TAM. A day by day, up to date picture of your market, not last week's iteration, not 2 weeks ago, not a month ago, not last quarters, day by day. And that allows you to iterate faster, make better decisions with better data, and thereby close. Okay, so I first want to start with talking about just how we currently work, how current go-to-market stacks, tech stacks work. And this is a very crude example, right? But the point is not to be like technically architecturally correct. It's to show how we as people interact with our go-to-market technology. Now, I know we all do this now because we all have our call transcript recorders jumping in everywhere. And I know we also have like just very specific prompts for, all right, we take the call transcript and then we throw it into ChatGPT or whatever. And we want to get some sort of deliverable out of this, whether it's like a scope of work, an ICP definition, and we want to further refine our pain points. We want to analyze the call transcript to see how we did selling, whatever that is, right? And then we also have like our data sources, so our context sources. So that's where, you have to be updating HubSpot constantly. And maybe you have a product database, for everything that's going on in your database. And then something that's not shown here is that like, ooh, I'll copy this. No. See? Control V. Come on, man. There we go. Outside data sets that you bring into Clay, or you're going to bring into HubSpot or whatever, right? So it's like your HG insights. This is your shovels. This is like high quality, usually like intent. You can throw that word in there. Data sources. Now the thing is that throughout this whole thing, the friction of working across all these different tools is extremely high. In fact, we can think of it as like, and I'm gonna have to get rid of this because here we go. Watch this. Boom. Oh, there we go. There's huge copy paste barriers across all of these tools. You're copying and pasting your AI, or you're copying and pasting your call transcripts into your ICP definition, and then when you finally have the ICP definition, we're gonna go back to we have external data source, but you might have had to export it from HG Insights to get it into Clay, and you're like, oh god, I have to clean up this data, now I have to enrich it, and it's a mess, right? Maybe it doesn't feel like that big of a mess as I'm making it out to be, but the point is there's big barriers across the current systems. And everything is deterministic, meaning if you want to send data from your external data source to HubSpot using an API, there's a very specific 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 way of doing so. There's no intelligence, it's just rote automation. That's the current state of things. But what's happening now is these things can now intelligently talk to one another. And that's done by two new technologies. So you've heard about AI agents, I'm sure. AI agents is something called Model Context Protocol, which is basically a standardized way for AI to talk to your SoundSpot, your Snowflake data, your context sources around, your Notion, maybe you have this in your Notion, or your call transcripts, right? There's a standardized interface, like a USB Type-C cable. You can plug into anything and it just works. So what's happening now is that MCP is making it so all of your little AI agents, these things, can go talk to, let's say, like, this is your HubSpot, this is your Snowflake, and these are your call transcripts, and this is your Claude, right? Whatever. Everything can talk to everything now. Um, and that creates the ability to create a living intelligence layer across your whole go-to-market stack. So let me show you what I mean by this. Okay, so let me explain what we're looking at here. This is meant to be a little AI agent and MCP. So it's USB Type C. And you plug your USB Type C into your HubSpot and your Snowflake database in your call transcripts. And for the prompt, you've given the agent, the pain points, the ICP definition, what your customers and leads and clients care about, all pulled in, synthesized from your perspective. So really, it should be like, you as a person, just like telling it how to, what to care about and why, what to look for. And what happens is because the agent can iteratively call these, talk to these things. You can ask a question like, "Hey, what is you know, do we have information about this customer in Snowflake?" No. Okay. Well, if it's not in Snowflake, we can go to call transcript or whatever the question is that would help you turn raw data in your system or in external systems as well. This is a big use case: is querying high value, high context external databases like Shovels, which is the one we did for, or the one I did with Jordan for generating permissionless value props using MCP server I built. If you can go out and programmatically pull in data and then use the agent to ask a million questions of it, like up to like 45 times, we got to recursively querying, hey, what's this? What's this? What's this? Like all the way through. It goes from just like a deterministic, so like step 1, 2, 3, 4, that's it. Automation to a intelligent, almost like universal machine that can synthesize raw data into insight and value. So value in that, hey, this information, this is who you should talk to at these companies, or we know given our research about you that you have this problem and we can solve it for you this specific way. And by the way, we've already started solving it for you. Whatever that is, whatever that insight is, you can bake your expertise on how to solve that problem and how to get to that insight yourself into these agentic systems now. And you can now put this whole thing in between all of these. So instead of having these red barriers here, now you have, you can imbue your whole system with these little loops, right? These recursive agentic loops. So anywhere you go in your system where you're working, whether you want to talk to it in ChatGPT or in your HubSpot or your Salesforce or your Notion, and now everything has the ability to translate and transform raw data into real insight over time. So let me show you an example of that. So this is like a toy example of like we want to be able to talk to our data inside Slack using a Snowflake database. So it's really just firmographics and a Snowflake database and a specific prompt, in this case like kind of like a toy one, that tells it, hey, this is what I care about and this is how to talk to this context source to pull out raw data and turn that into insight. And you can see here, you ping it, and then this is what I'm trying to show you is that in here, you can actually get the model to, what this is what I'm talking about, recursively talk to that context source to not just answer the, not just to address the like basic analytics, but to address and solve for the intent of the question and the value that answering that question creates. And this is how we're able to do 1,800 permissionless value prop generations for Jordan using his framework, using that same approach here, that Snowflake where it just recursively talks to your data source and then spits out, in this case, using his permissionless value prop framework, a very valuable message. So when you really think about what this novel tech and approach solves, it doesn't just like kind of melt these context silos. It doesn't make it so everything can talk to everything. It makes it so you can imbue your whole go-to-market stack with intelligence. So instead of having like, okay, these are now green, it's that every single step along the way, um, you can now have. Ooh, let me do that. Let's shrink this down. You can have these little systems. I'm finding the mirror board right now. Um, you can have these in between all throughout your system, and in fact, the whole thing becomes one of these once you start stacking enough of these in there. You can have in between, your call transcripts and your main AI chatbot. You can have it in between. You can have it inside of your Clay, right? Um, you can have it, constantly feeding in insight from your call transcripts to defining your, constantly iterating on your ICP based off of new learnings, or your pain points or whatever. And you can, even put it directly into your CRM. So it's constantly updating your CRM, with these learnings and insights. And then over time, and this is not going to be a good visual, but like the whole system becomes a living source of go to market intelligence when assembled and engineered correctly. So when you use the term like go to market alpha database, I think that's a good way to conceptualize it. But I really do want to kind of hit home that this thing is living. It can constantly update and change according to, you change the definition in your ICP, and suddenly it sets off a chain reaction. Well, the agent can go query your Snowflake database or an outside database, um, or wherever you want to pull in a tam from, and it can flip those switches, um, to pull in leads differently and enrich them differently, thereby updating constantly, and constantly staying as tightly aligned, um, to basically your taste and perspective as a go-to-market expert, and RevOps expert, wherever you want to define yourself, as possible. And that's what really matters at the end of the day here. This whole system is dependent on your expertise, your understanding of your customer and their problems and pain points, in your taste, fundamentally, how you want to think about defining, pain points, ICPs, whatever it comes down to. In this specific example, it's your taste. So, as a takeaway, um, I think thinking about this, atomic loop right here, if I can recursively imbue, not recursively, if I can imbue my entire system with recursive intelligence, what new questions can I ask that would otherwise take me hundreds of hours and get them answered in seconds? What does that enable me to do as a go to market and revenue ops team? I think thinking that through very methodically and using AI and other stuff like that to help you ideate uh, the possibilities will make this far more tangible, as how it can create value for you specifically. And if you want help working through that process, both the conceptual and process oriented side, all the way through to the technical implementation, I build these types of systems for go to market and revenue ops teams. So feel free to hit me up if you have any questions, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.